Welcome to ILTV's Insider. I'm Aaron Porras, and today we return to talk about elections. With the fourth vote in 2 years quickly approaching amidst an ongoing pandemic, the latest Hebrew media polls are showing yet another change in the balance of power in the Knesset. But perhaps no factions are garnering as much attention in the news as the ultra-Orthodox and national religious or Zionist parties are, particularly as the coronavirus has hit the ultra-Orthodox communities hardest, while critics are accusing the Prime Minister of capitulating to religious demands in return for political support.
למה ראש ממשלה צריך לדבר עם אחיין של רב בן 93? למה הוא צריך לדבר עם האדמו"ר מבעלז, לבקש ממנו? אגב, זה הצליח מאוד חלקית הצעד הזה. יש מגזר אחר שזוכה לכאלה מחוות ידידותיות מראש ממשלה בזמן מגפה, בזמן שיש כל כך הרבה הפרות?
שני המגזרים הגדולים שהם במחלות, בתחלואה יתרה, ואני שמח שזה משתנה לפחות אצל החרדים, זה המגזר החרדי והחברה הערבית, ואני הולך לשניהם, ואני מדבר שם עם מנהיגי ציבור, אני לא מתחנן בפניהם, אני אומר להם, תלכו להתחסן. גם לרב קניבסקי וגם לראשי ערים ערביות שאני הולך אליהם, ואני קורא להם להתחסן.
Joining us to discuss is Israeli journalist and contributor to the MISHPACHA Jewish Family Weekly, TZIPPY YAROM-DISKIND, and then BEN-DROR YEMINI, attorney, author, and YNET journalist. Thank you both so much for being with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, I'm going to start actually with you, TZIPPY. How are the talks of the ultra-Orthodox community boycotting the election? I want to start with that, actually. Are they likely to hurt Prime Minister Netanyahu? Because right now we're hearing talks that because of the coronavirus hitting that particular community so hard, many of them are actually going to withhold their vote.
I think the only place it's really happening is on the walls, meaning in what we call pashkevidim, the ads on the walls that are saying that we are not going to vote and so on. They are angry at our Knesset members. Why didn't they defend us, or why didn't they stand for us in particular points during this pandemic? I don't think anybody is going to not vote because of whatever Netanyahu did. I remind you that most of the Haredi people are voting because of what the rabbis told them. They are voting for the rabbis and not for the Knesset members. Many of us are angry at our Knesset members, not at the first time, and we still vote for them.
Ben-DROR, how do you respond to really the same question, and also to that from the soundbite we just listened to a moment ago, where Netanyahu was saying, hey, I'm not begging, I'm just saying X, Y, and Z, but the optics of that look very different.
Yeah, well, what happened lately in the last year, it's only the tip on the iceberg, because what we are talking about actually is the relationship and the agreements that are taking place for so many years between Netanyahu and the Haredi, ultra-Orthodox leadership. It's not about someone who is not obeying the rules. It's not the point. The point is it's a much bigger problem. What is going to happen with Israel for the long run? How long can we put on our shoulders the Haredi section? It's much deeper than only the Corona time. That's why so many people, not only among the secular section, speaking also about Orthodox people. They are all furious about something which is going on for many years.
TZIPPY, how do you respond to Ben-DROR's assessment that all the issues that are going on with coronavirus are really just symptomatic of a larger rift between, you could say, secular and Haredi life?
I won't even call it a rift, but I would say good morning, because in a way, the Haredi sector is living for itself for the last 70 plus years. There's nothing new about that. But usually outsiders won't notice it because there's no clash between us and them, or not a clash on this magnitude. And now, when it comes to a point when we do clash, then people feel it. But most of the time, Haredi people do live for themselves. We do what we have to do because the law commands us to do that. So, we do vote for the Knesset. most of us, only a little faction of the Haredi community don't vote for the Knesset. And most of the time we live for ourselves. We don't look at anything around us as something that we should live according to. We listen to our rabbis. They would be our leaders on many, many everyday issues. It's just unknown to outside people. And now all of a sudden, it's under the eye of the public because of, for example, the fact that our prime minister went and asked a rabbi in the middle of a pandemic to ask his people to go and do whatever he asked for. It's not new that politicians are going to rabbis, but usually they remember that there are rabbis when they would like them to participate in some political vote or political decision. And now we're talking about our everyday life.
Well, so responding to that, because I think it's fair to say of most people that they vote with their own interests in mind, and that the Haredi sector is, in that respect, no different than anyone else in Israel voting for a representative that they think holds their best interests at heart. But that being said, as you said, this pandemic is revealing rifts and separations within the public that are arguably greater than what people are giving them credit for. Do you think that this is a sustainable lifestyle, that the Haredim are as separated from the rest of the public as they are?
It was for 70 years. It is a question if it could go on.
Well, but saying that it's been going on for 70 years doesn't mean that it was a good solution, that it was a good status quo.
No, but you ask if it could go on. If it could have gone, it could have been for 70 years. Maybe it could go on for 70 more years. But the question is, how big would be the impact of what happened now? And this is the questions that we, among them ourselves, are asking a lot. It's a topic of hot discussions that go on into the nights and in the middle of the days, whenever something is happening, and we ask ourselves, how are we gonna fix it, or what should we fix? What should stay as it has been until now? What is going to change? How is it going to change, if it's going to change?
Ben-DROR?
Yeah, well, I heard the number 70 years. 70 years, it cannot go on for more 70 years because let's put it on the table. Israel is going to collapse. It's just impossible. When the participation in the labor force of Haredi men is something about 50%, it cannot work anymore. When they run separated community, it cannot work anymore. When they are forcing Israel as a country to adopt some laws that are unacceptable for most of the people, it's not a democracy, it's something else. It cannot go like that anymore. And I'm speaking from a very, I'm not religious maybe, but I keep kosher and I want Israel to be a Jewish state. I don't want Israel, and as most Israelis, I don't want Israel to be a Haredi state. And it's becoming more and more dependent on the Haredi sector. It cannot go like that anymore. And maybe, just maybe, next elections, there will be a kind of protest from a lot of parts of the Israeli population against this situation.
Well, so how do you think that the balance of power is likely to shift in the coming elections, especially given what you just said, Ben-DROR?
Look, right now Netanyahu has a kind of bloc with the Haredim, not with the religious parties, but with the Haredim, and somehow also maybe with the party of Smotrich and Ben-Gvir, maybe. But the point is that people are fed up. People are fed up, not because they are against a Jewish state, not at all. People of it, how is it going to change? We have no idea. I don't know. I do hope it's going to change because I don't want this coalition to rule the country. Not anymore. Not anymore. Because I do care about this country. Because I do care about this kind of relationships. Because I do care about the Haredim themselves, about the ultra-Orthodox. I want them to be part of us. I don't want them to be separated. Just like as I don't want Israeli Arabs to be a separate sector. I don't want it. That's why I'm saying that, okay, it can be done now, but for the long run, the meaning is a collapse. I don't have a better word in order to describe what is going to happen if it will keep on like this.
TZIPPY, how do we, going off of what Ben-DROR just said, how do we bring the Haredi and Arab and secular public together without having to sacrifice anyone's identity?
I don't think anybody would need to sacrifice their identity as long as once they are part of the general society, they are giving the right conditions to be wherever they are. I'll give you an example. The army made some adaptations that would let Haredi men go to the army. And in the particular units, it's being kept very strictly. So more and more Haredi men did go to the army because they had the conditions. So once there is the right environment, people could do that. But may I remind ourselves that we live in a democratic country. You can't push people to go out and work, especially thinking about the fact that 78% of the Haredi women are working, and most of them are working because their husbands are not, which means that some others don't work because their husbands do work. And my prediction is that once more Haredi men would go out to work, and it's happening in the younger part of the population, of the Haredi population, people who are 25 and less than 25 are going out to work in larger numbers, which means one day they would be a larger number of the population. And many times the wife would stay home to take care of the kids. So then they are dropping out of the labor force. So it's not like once there would be more people working out there, you would see more absolute part of the Haredi section working, because women do tend to stay home when they have someone supporting them to take care of their kids until they are growing up. And we see that all around the world. It's nothing new. So when you talk about men not working, their wives are working for them. I don't see that changing much. And I'm not talking about the numbers of working, but the general percentage of people, men and women in the Haredi sector working, wouldn't go up so fast because of that fact. Many times when a woman feels like she could stay home, even for just a few years, like 6 years, 7 years, until the kids are growing up, she would do that.
All right, well, I want to shift our conversation a little bit back towards the polls, because the most recent polls that are coming out lately are showing a drop really in the power of the right-wing bloc. And now we're seeing Prime Minister Netanyahu partnering with more and more, you could say, right-wing, national, religious, even arguably extremist parties like Otzma Yehudit, which includes Itamar Ben-Gvir, Kahanist ideologies, things like that. Do you believe that is going to negatively impact the right-wing bloc, or will it not really have much of an effect at all? Ben-DROR, I'll start with you.
Yeah, well, there is a paradox. The paradox is that even if we are speaking about the ultra-Orthodox, the Haredi, we are not speaking about all the people are the same. Not at all. We are making generalizations. The same is about the right-wingers in Israel. I mean, not all of them are supporting Smotrich and Ben-Gvir.
No, there's quite a span of ideologies here.
So the new alliance between Netanyahu and Smotrich and Itamar Ben-Gvir I think it's going to damage Netanyahu. It's going to damage Netanyahu because, according to so many polls, at least 30% of the right-wing voters are not supporting this kind of coalition. How many of them will vote against Netanyahu, namely for Gideon Sa'ar or maybe for Naftali Bennett? I don't know, but it might happen. It might happen. And when you combine this kind of common disrespect to the coalition with the Haredim and the common disrespect for the coalition with the extreme right-wingers, maybe, just maybe, it will bring a change. And when I'm speaking about a change, it's not that a left-wing government is going to rule Israel after the election. I don't speak about it because it's not going to happen. But I'm speaking about a kind of a big coalition against the Netanyahu bloc with the ultra-Orthodox and the extreme right-wingers. Yes, it might change.
TZIPPY, do you see similar changes? And do you think that the Haredi parties, Shas, United Toward Judaism, see a natural ally in parties like Otzma Yehudit and the NRP?
I'm quoting one of the aides of one of the Haredi Knesset members who told me, we have no friends in politics. Haredi Knesset members get their vote for very specific goals, and they are there in the Knesset to fulfill those goals. And Shas, for example, went in the past with the most extreme leftist government that was here, and they still went with them. I'm talking about in the 92 elections, because they felt like this way they would fulfill their goals. And Haredi people could form a government with pretty much everybody. And I would be careful here, but maybe even with non-Zionist parties like Arab parties who are not against the state of Israel, which there are such parties. So as long as we could form a coalition and achieve our goals, we would join whoever would suggest something that we could get. So if Gideon Sa'ar is getting some nice votes, maybe with him, Naftali Bennett, maybe with him, I don't think we're like extremists.
Who are
any kind.
Who are the parties? Because you just mentioned that the Haredi parties have this ideology of, we don't have friends in politics, we have partners in politics. And that's fine, but then do you see any sort of natural enemies or parties that either the Haredi parties, Shas UTJ, would refuse to sit with, or that they would refuse to sit with Shas UTJ?
Right now, only Lieberman and Meretz.
Ben-Dror, do you see do you see the opposition against the Haredim impacting that balance?
Yeah, it's going to be quite interesting after the election, because I would say that the Haredi parties are the most efficient. I mean, they know exactly what they're doing and they get what they want. I mean, and I salute them for that. I mean, you have to admit, they do exactly what they have to do for their, as they see it. I think, I don't think like them, but from their point of view, they're doing the best thing in order to fulfill the goals that they want to fulfill. Now, I'm not sure that other parties will go with the Haredi parties. I'm not sure about it, because part of their agenda is not to go with them and not to be dependent on them and not to give up anymore and not to give them so much power. So if there will be a coalition with the Haredi party, so what did we change in that respect? What did we change? I mean, if we are going to change nothing, so what do we need this coalition for? So I'm not sure it's going to happen. Maybe there will be no choice. But if there will be no choice, it will be a situation when the Haredi parties will prefer anyway Netanyahu, because until now, Netanyahu, as they admitted again and again, Netanyahu gave them whatever they wanted. So why to change?
Well, so a follow-up on that, if Netanyahu were not in politics anymore, which of course I don't see that happening anytime soon, but assuming Netanyahu were not a factor, would the Likud still be a natural partner with the ultra-Orthodox parties?
The Likud, of course, the Likud will be part of it. I mean, a coalition, an alliance between the Haredi parties and the Likud will be anyway. I don't see the Haredi parties leaving the Likud. It's not only because of Netanyahu. It's, I think, and it looks to me like if it is much, much deeper, this kind of alliance. Now, will it change? I don't know. I just read an article of Chaim Ramon, who used to be one of the leaders of the Labour Party, and he said, we have to get back to what was in history, a coalition between the Labour Party and the Haredi parties. I think he is wrong, and I'll tell you why he is wrong. I think he's wrong because it's not the same kind of Haredi population. Why? Because according to so many polls, you see that the most right-wingers in Israel are not the religious parties. It's very interesting. It's the Haredi parties. So something changed because of many reasons that we are not going to analyze now, but it completely changed. Again, I don't want to make generalizations, but according to the polls, the most right-wing sector in Israel is the Haredi sector.
All right. Final reaction from you, TZIPPY.
I can tell you for sure that the Haredi community did shift to the right in the last maybe 20 years or much more to the right. I can tell you as a writer that whenever I write something that leans to the left side of the map, I would get reactions about it. Or even if they thought I'm leaning to the left side of the map, I would get a reaction. And I'm not even talking about Israeli politics because usually I don't write about it, but I do write about American politics. And if they only thought that I'm talking towards the left side, I would get reactions. So yes, there are less and less people leaning to the left on the Haredi community. I don't know about extremism, but I do know they do shift more to the right.
Well, it's going to be...
Yeah, so the meaning is that the coalition is much more based and much more deeper than what we thought.
All right, well, I am on pins and needles to see what's going to come at the election, to see how exactly the balance that we discussed today is going to play out in reality. And hopefully we will have a coalition and we won't be heading towards fifth elections. But unfortunately, that is all the time that we have today to discuss it. Thank you again, TZIPPY, YAROM-DISKIND, and BEN-DROR YEMINI for joining us. I appreciate it so much. For everybody watching at home, please make sure to tune in next time on Insider for more in-depth analysis on everything Israel. And also, if there's a topic that you want us to cover next, please let us know about it in the comment sections online. Finally, remember that for more news from Israel, follow ILTV on Facebook, like us on Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube and Roku TV channels. I'm Aaron Porras. Thank you for watching.